This was the third policy review meeting we've had. Obviously, we're going to update our documentation and stuff in time for the local and general elections, which are upcoming. And this one, we decided that we would open up to anybody who has an interest in mental health issues. And we were absolutely delighted that people from the third sector, service users, trade unionists, people who work within government came along, expressed an interest, and were able to help, because we don't have all the best ideas. So I believe the most democratic way to do things is to have input from others. And you know, some people say, oh, you just talking. At least we're talking about the big issues, and hopefully we'll be able to contribute in terms of making sure things are better in the future than they have been in the past.
Well, let's address that talking shop accusation.
Yeah.
Have you formed policy as a result?
Yes, well, last night the secretary of the Manx Labour Party was there equipped and has done a couple of pages of bullet points, which we'll now have to go through and translate into proper policies. So I'm not going to say what we're going to do and what we're not going to do at this stage, but I can tell you that because of all the various inputs, it was very useful. Some things we're going to do short term, even before we release any election material. There are certain things that we've decided last night that we'll be doing to try and help in the situation.
Do you think, and it's talked about a lot more now, mental health issues, but do you think it's still not recognised as an issue maybe in government or in the private sector? I'm talking about them in their capacity then as employers.
Yes. Well, David Ashford was in to speak to the Social Affairs Policy Review Committee about mental health issues and suicide, and said that about 300 of the staff of the Department of Health and Social Care have had mental health first aid training, so that they're able to help in immediate situations. That's 300 out of 3,000 staff. So there's a long way to go, and a long way to go in government, and also the private sector has a part to play. I mean, I was recently involved with a family whose the male of which took his own life, and when he took his own life, it was because of bullying at work. So we've got a long way to go, and I think everybody recognises that. But as I say, I think one of the good things is that more people are talking about it. I'm involved, and I declared this last night, obviously, with Reach, a recently established charity on the Isle of Man, where people can talk informally. Sometimes the wait to get involved with the actual services can be quite a long time, unfortunately. And so there was, as I say, there was another charity there last night. There's Reach, there's Quing, there's a number of people involved who are trying to help people who find themselves in these stressful situations. And so that's good. And younger people are much better than people of my generation in terms of being prepared to talk about things more openly, and I think that's a really good thing, in particular for males who always, in my day, used to bottle things up, and that doesn't make anything better.
But they are third sector options rather than
absolutely
than it being a government-driven
for sure
to address mental health.
Correct, and that's what was made clear last night, that yes, there will always be a case for third sector organisations, but they shouldn't be
relied on, though.
No, it should be front and centre, led by government. The Social Affairs Policy Review Committee went to Tynwald, and the Department of Health and Social Care and the government supported all of our recommendations. So last night, as a starting point, I produced copies of all those recommendations to kind of help the discussion that we had. Areas that are being covered, and we've been promised that the government will be acting upon, but obviously they need to be held to account to make sure they do so. But I think there is a willingness and an understanding that this is something which has been for far too long not had the attention it should have had. The Social Affairs Policy Review Committee met with Henrietta Hewitt, the Director of Public Health. And so this is a public health issue rather than a mental health services issue principally. It is, and that's what it is everywhere else. And she expressed to us her concern that this matter hadn't been, the data, which is so important in terms of making sure you have the appropriate policies to take forward, hadn't been collated prior to her appointment. And she was very frank and very open about that. And so I think it's recognised within various government departments where it's important that these things do need attention.
It was interesting. We've spoken just recently to the union bosses, and they're saying now a third, perhaps, of their time is being taken up dealing with mental health issues in the workplace. That's a worrying trend. It
is, and that, there were representatives of trade unions at our meeting last night, and they made exactly those points. It's often the case, either with the Manx Labour Party or, I think, with trade unions, that it's only when things are going well, we don't perhaps get as many people connecting with us. The Manx Labour Party recently has seen a growth in membership, and I think that's because there are a number of social issues in particular which require attention. And that the point you make about the trade unions intervening, supporting people with payments and with making investigations on their behalf was made quite clear last night. And I'm obviously grateful that the trade unions are doing that, but it gets back to the point that we've already discussed, that first and foremost, government needs to lead on this.